This is Danny Gathulin for ESBR Boxing. We've just had the final press conference for Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr. Do. It's a pleasure to be joined by trainer Liam Smith, Joe McNally. Joe, not quite as tasty and personal as the first press conference, but you can tell these two are never going to be the best of friends.
Yeah, I contradict that. I think after Saturday, they'll get on just fine.
How's your job been for this fight, this camp for Liam? Because I know you would always have been I know you obviously would have been confident going into the third. Let's get Ross out here.
You said you didn't want to talk.
Hey man, come on, I want you to talk with me.
No, it's because your son's waiting.
Is it?
As I say, Joe, sorry, I know you obviously would have been confident going into the first fight, but now you know that, as you can say, you can stop Chris, whereas before it would have been more a belief. Has this job more been about trying to prevent any complacency creeping into Liam's game?
Liam Smith is the ultimate professional. Complacency will never set in, not with the team behind him, not just myself. I've got this man standing next to me, Russ Amber, legendary. His other coach, Declan, John Austinson, Johnny Reynolds, his team, his brothers, his family. Complacency doesn't set in. He's the ultimate professional, and he shows Chris the respect and the work ethic that he puts in the gym.
Are you expecting to see any different stylistic approaches from Chris? He's obviously, much has been made of the link up with Bomac. We saw the boxer Chris Eubank, the brawler Chris Eubank. What are you expecting to see from Chris Saturday night?
Everything that he's learned off Roy Jones the past 4 or 5 years. That's what I'll expect.
Do you think he is capable of reverting to that sort of high volume output fighter, or does he not have that in the tank anymore?
I hope so. But look, he can box, he can fight. Chris can do both. He's got really poor fundamental mistakes, and Liam Smith, in my opinion, is just that better in every department.
Chris has obviously drawn on quite a lot of excuses for this fight. It was the weight, it was the elbow, it was Roy. Do you think in your heart of hearts he believes that, or is that more sort of mental gymnastics to convince himself he can go in there and beat Liam?
Mental gymnastics. But if that's what it takes to convince himself of defeat, he ain't going to go back to the gym and correct what literally got himself knocked out. He never got it with an elbow. He got it with a combination punching, 2 combinations to be exact. Up and down, right hands, left hooks to the body, and the weight, I don't think the weight's a factor. The weight wasn't a factor against Kobarov, you know, against your Billy Joes, against your Nick Blackwells, against your Marcus Morrisons, Liam Williams. The weight was never a factor, so why was the weight a factor? I heard them state that I come in too light. Okay, well, come in too heavy, then you're still going to make the weight. But look, he's a fantastic fighter, and I'm expecting a hard 12 rounds on Saturday.
Joe, just while I've got you, I want to ask about a couple other fighters in your stable. Josh Taylor obviously suffered that defeat to Teofimo Lopez back in June. How is Josh? Is he back in the gym? How has he been sort of recovering from the defeat, both mentally and physically? It was obviously a tough one to take for him. Yeah, it's a tough one to take for Josh. It's a tough one for me to take as a coach too. But look, Teofimo Lopez, as I've stated before, is an elite level fighter. You come away with a points loss, underperforming, and still winning 5 rounds out the contest. There's no shame in that. I don't think Josh performed. There's things in the background that we do need to change, But about, you know, sitting and dwelling on the defeat, no, he had no injuries. His hands are fine, his foot's fine. He's been back in the gym. He's training up the road in Scotland, then he come down to Liverpool. He's down in Liverpool for a few weeks at a time. He hasn't stopped training. The only break he had was his honeymoon. And that's the hard part at that level, keeping them in the gym and keeping them interested in what they're doing. And he'll walk into another magnificent fight with another elite name sooner rather than later. One of those changes, well, not that you've mentioned, but a lot of people speculate Josh could move up in weight. There's obviously always been the talk of the Jack Catterall rematch. Where do you see Josh's future?
147, we've talked about it. Maybe not. But at 140, I truly believe is where the most options are. It's a good division. There's a lot of names there that, whether it's through finance, business, wages, mandatories, they can't all fight each other. Now, I'll have to sit down with his nutritionist and strength conditioning coach and Josh himself and get a lot of testing done and see what our next move is. You know, maybe fight, I don't know. There's a lot of names out there. There's your coming off defeats. There's your Ryan Garcia's, you know, he's just come off a controversial win. George Kambosos, there's Adrian Broner's, there's Lomachenko to come off a defeat. There's a lot of names for Josh and everyone needs to dance, and thankfully Josh is one of them partners. He's in the mix.
A name that sort of out of the blue in the past few months has been linked to Josh by Eddie Hearn was Conor Benn. Now you can only imagine what the build-up for that would be like. Is that a fight that would interest you? Know, it would obviously have to be at 147, but I can't think of many domestic matchups that are much bigger than that.
It's just like lose-lose for Josh Taylor. Why? Number one, the controversy, what he's gone through, but that's not my... I love Conor Benn to fight one of my fighters, James Metcalf. You know, he's calling you Chris Eubanks out this. At the end of the day, he's fought a lot of names that have been the washed up, they're not really in the sport, but then the controversies come with his testing. But I like to see Conor and James Metcalf for the 154 IBO title. That's a good fight right there.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about JJ. He's obviously had the incredible 18 months, going back to the Leharaga fight, obviously won the IBO against Dennis Hogan. We've sort of all been quiet on the JJ Metcalf front since the Hogan fight. What's in the pipeline for him now? You must have one eye on that Canelo-Charlo fight, because JJ is well ranked with a lot of the governing bodies. A lot of people don't think Charlo's going to come back to 154. Is the plan maybe sort of keep JJ busy and then strike when the iron's hot when those world titles become available?
Yeah, well, you know, you've hit the nail on the head, really. He's got a fringe world title, and with Charlo fighting Canelo, it's if them belts fragment, there's a lot of, you know, number ones, number twos, as I've just stated, you know, might not make sense financial wise. Some might price themselves out, injuries, etc. So, you know, James is in a mix, could fight for one of the major and top 4 organisations, and speaking to himself and his management, it's a waiting game. He's in a fantastic position. He was retired not too long ago and he's on a fantastic running form, and you know, just let's sit tight and see what comes about.
Very last thing I want to ask you about, Joe, is I hate to end the interview in a sort of negative, but this month, I think it's literally been every week this month, we've seen a new high profile fighter, better use political language here, returning adverse analytical finding. Just as a trainer, you know, that Rotunda gym sort of esteemed in boxing sort of folklore in this country, like what sort of, does it ever get you disillusioned with the sport? I think that's the sentiment to see from a lot of fans online.
Who's that, sorry?
Just all the high profile fighters that have been tested. Does it ever sort of make you think, like, what sort of state's boxing in, how rampant is it?
Yeah, look, I've stated this morning I commented, and it's not like me, but Chris made a comment saying he was giving the likes of Conor Benn and Robert Arenas and others a bit of shit because he's just had a piss test. I ain't seen no Vada for this one. Vada hasn't walked in my gym and tested Liam Smith once. Thingo, you know. So what's he bragging about getting tested off Ukad for? Ukad's testing now being is a load of shite, and it is disheartening, and unfortunately they're getting caught, and we're seeing it a lot more. And listen, it's a fucking travesty for the sport because people's lives are on the line in there, and it shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be happening.
Joe, I think we would all echo what you said there. Thanks for giving me so much of your time. All the best.
God bless, mate.
Top man, Joe.